Alright, so you got your Glock fill strip. This is model 19. Say you've cleaned it and you're getting ready to relubricate it, do the inspection on it, whatever. You take your slide, make sure that the back of the striker here, you can pull it and you have some tension. Don't let it jump forward, just make sure that you pull it back, it's under tension. You take this button, which is your drop safety button, and you can see through the ejection port that nothing's protruding. You want to press down on this and see if it comes through. If it doesn't come through, just give it a quick shake and you should see that the striker has protruded through. When you get through with that, you want to just push back up till you hear the click. Rattle it. If you can rattle it, that means there's no debris or anything inside of the firing pin channel or striker channel. You're pretty much good to go on the slide. You want to check the front sight, wiggle a little bit, make sure that it's not loose. You want to inspect the screw on the back, make sure it's not loose, anything like that. You take your barrel, you invert it, drop it inside of the frame. That way you can see if there are any bulges in the barrel, any problems like that. Take your frame and you want to put your fingers on the slide lock and just pick up and release. It should spring right back down. If it gets stuck anywhere in here, it means there's a problem with the spring, but you just want to pick it up and let it drop just like that. Okay, with the trigger in the rearward position, the connector should be poking up. Take some sort of blunt object, press the connector in until the trigger bar jumps up. Take your finger or whatnot, go forward until it won't go anymore. Then you're going to press down back here on the crucifix. As long as the crucifix doesn't jump all the way back down, as long as it stays right there, it means that the thing's good to go. To relieve trigger tension, you want to push forward on this thing and then press the trigger to the rear. You don't want to just snap it back and forth like that. Assemble your Glock. This is all just basic function testing without live fire. What you're going to do is make sure that it's cleared. You're going to press the trigger all the way to the rear. You're going to hold it straight up and down and just ease the slide. As long as the slide will go all the way back up like that, your recoil spring assembly is good. When you release the slide and it sticks in a position like that, it's time for any recoil spring assembly. So what you're going to do is you're going to press the trigger all the way to the rear, hold it, cycle it, let it go forward, press it again, you know the reset's working on it, cycle it one more time, put your finger on the trigger outside of the trigger safety bar, just on the edge of it, and press back. Make sure that the little piece in the very back is engaged, that's popped out, so you know that the trigger safety is working. And then the last thing you want to do to it with the trigger in the forward position is you want to try to pull down on the slide lock levers right there for disassembly and push forward on the back of your Glock, which means that that's working correctly as well. Which that is this little bitty spring right in here, if you can see it. That little silver colored spring right in there, which holds this little bitty piece of metal in here, which is the only thing that keeps the slide on the frame. This little straight groove right here holds it right there. If that little piece of metal breaks, then the entire slide will come off. In order to lubricate your Glock, you don't need much lubricant at all. If you can't take the gun apart, you're looking up under this little connector part right here that has a little ear that bends over. You'll take and put a tiny bit of oil just up inside of there and let it drain down in there. Once you put just a little bit in there, what you're going to do is, again, you're going to put your thumb on this, press forward, and just keep tension on it while you work the trigger to get it worked into the trigger pretty well. On your slide, you don't want to get to the very back and let it roll down, because you've got this little plastic thing right here, and this plastic has a gap in it, and it will allow the liquid to go into the firing pin channel or the striker channel. And because this has a plastic piece on the side of another plastic piece, if you get any kind of lubricant inside of there, it will drag and cause light primer hits. So you don't want to put any lubricant in there, and you don't want to put any lubricant in here. This is a debris hole designed to blow some of the debris, carbon and whatnot out of it while you're shooting it. You don't want to put any oil around the drop safety plunger. You don't want to put any oil around the extractor. There's no need to. It functions best when it's dry. So you take your oil of choice and you'll put a drop right in there on one side, and you'll put a drop inside of the other. And you can see it's got just a little bit of oil on it. You can sit that there for a minute and let it drain. And take your doesn't really matter what kind, but you just take a little Q-tip, put just a smidgen of oil on it. Take your Glock, it's running a little bit down, maybe 1/4 of an inch. Make sure it's in that groove. And get it dispersed all along inside of the groove on each side. And basically you're just looking for a good, nice little sheen to it. You don't want anything too heavy. Now you'll notice that there's excess oil on here. Just wipe that down. You don't need it there. And then on this part of it, just push straight in and wipe back and get the excess oil off there. Now you've got 1 or 2 more areas you need to lubricate on this thing. Just a tab of oil. You'll see a ridge line right here. If you're looking at the Glock, you see one side has a protruded edge to it, and what rides on that is this little piece of the connector right here. So you've got metal on metal friction. So what you want to do is you want to put a light coat right here, and you just wipe that off a little bit. It's not going to matter that much. If you want to, you can put just a drop right there. That rides on a piece in the frame. The other place you're going to want to lube this is put a drop of oil right there where the top of the barrel rides, and you'll see the more you shoot it, the barrel doesn't go all the way forward, the hood of the barrel doesn't. It stops right about there, so that's about the only place you want to. And as again you see, it's got a good little sheen on it, but it's not dripping wet with oil, which is going to be counterproductive. If you really get a wild here and you want to, you can lube where the barrel, the side of the chamber rides in here. You don't have to, but if it makes you feel better you can, but you want to make sure it's a very light coat of oil. On the actual barrel itself, down here, this little piece, not the half moon, because that's plastic that rides on that. It's metal, but the plastic guide rod fits into it, so it's no need for lubricant. But right underneath it you see the little step which meets with the metal piece in the frame. That's a little bit more oil than we need. All we're going to do is take a Q-tip and we're just going to disperse that right there. And with the oil that we do have on the Q-tip right up in between here in this little groove, we're going to make sure that we get some oil in there, because that's metal to metal contact as well. And then again on the very top we want a little bit of oil, because that rides inside of the barrel hood and the slide. And take another drop of oil, and I'm not using a full drop as most people would think. I'm just using a little bitty dab. And you can take your fingers and just rub it in, and you're getting a good sheen to it. It's not dripping wet with oil, but you can see there's a nice little cover on it. If you want to, and again you don't have to, but if you want to, you can run a little bit of oil right there. And again on the side of the barrel that rides inside of the slide. But that's about as much oil as you want. You can see it's got a good sheen. If you look at this compared to that, you can see that there's a different sheen on it. Put the barrel back in. Put it back on here. Clear it, make sure it's good to go. And what you're going to do is you're just going to press the trigger, and you're going to hold the trigger to the rear. And you're going to cycle your slide about 10 times or so. Make sure that it's actually got the oil dispersed. And you can do your trigger like that a few times. Make sure it's got oil dispersed inside of the trigger itself. Lock it to the rear. Last thing you want to do is just take a Q-tip and right down here in the breech face where the bullet's going to get at, just wipe it down and make sure it didn't have any oil come on it, any excess oil or whatnot, and then you're good to go. It's tested safe and it's properly lubricated.